The book review for the Acid Watcher Diet 28-Day Reflux Prevention and Healing Program by Dr. Jonathan Aviv is coming up. It's for anyone. This book is for anyone who has chronic heartburn, but it's also for anyone who wants to learn how to eat healthier. So, hope you enjoy the podcast. All right, so we got the book review for Dr. Jonathan Aviv's book, The Acid Watcher Diet 28-Day Reflux Prevention and Healing Program. It is one of my favorite books. It's changed the way that I think about how food affects us, affects how our health, affects how we fight chronic illnesses. Now I'm a big believer in it, in how our diet is so important in everything that when it comes down to fighting chronic illnesses and being healthier. And that seems obvious, but when you think about having some kind of chronic illness, you initially think, I need to go to the doctor. For me, right now, I've had an experience where I went to the doctor multiple times for my chronic heartburn and never solved it. And then I read this book, changed my diet, and it solved it 100%. So this is one of my favorite books. Just read it maybe 6 to 7 months ago. Then I changed my diet, and for 4 to 5 months I have no heartburn. And I'm someone who had heartburn for over 10 years, and it was chronic heartburn, painful every day, very excruciating pain, keeps me up at night. And I always just thought it was pain, and I can deal with pain. But it wasn't just pain. When you have something as bad as I had it, and if it continued longer and longer, there are chances that leads to esophagus cancer. And I didn't realize that until I read the book and I got informed on what all this meant. I can deal with a little pain, but when you start talking about esophagus cancer and all that stuff, that's a different story. And it wasn't until I read this book, got informed, I realized, wow, I need to change the way that I do things. I need to figure this out now, because I cannot have this happen to me in 10 years. And it would have if I just continued with my normal diet, that normal Western diet, that just continuing to eat shit. If I kept doing that, then very good chance I would have had some kind of bad situation down the road. So I read this book, and it's changed my view on diet. It helped me personally. Completely eliminate my heartburn after multiple doctor's visits in the past. That has really just led me down to taking Prilosec and Tums, and I've tried all the home remedies like ginger water, and it wasn't any of that was helping. Those are temporary, very temporary fixes, like a Band-Aid. But you need to understand the underlying cause of extreme heartburn. And this book is great. It has, it breaks it down amazingly. First section gives you a background, then it takes you all the way down to a blueprint of exactly how to execute the plan that Jonathan talks about. It is my favorite book. When it comes to the diet. And so I have other podcasts about this, but I had long experience trying to eliminate this stuff. And this is what did it. This is with a trick that helped me completely eliminate my heartburn. So this book is by Dr. Jonathan Aviv, and I'm just going to read this from the back of the cover. So he is a world-renowned physician, surgeon, educator, and author. He is the clinical director of the Voice and Swallowing Center of ENT and Allergy Associates. He's also a clinical professor of otolaryngology. I don't know how the hell to pronounce that word. At the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, New York. And if you need more info, go to acidwatcher.com. So this book is about a little over 300 pages. It's been published in 2014. It is a super easy book to read, is what I will say. So he talks about a lot of complex topics. I'm sure there's been many studies, and you can probably read scientific papers on this stuff, and it would go over your head. It would go over my head. But Jonathan puts this in this book in a way that a layman can read it and understand it and take action on it. So it's extremely easy to read. And there's 3 sections of the book. First section is general info about acid disruption and your diet. Second section it talks about all of the principles and lifestyle prescriptions that you should be following. And then the third section gives you an exact blueprint for how to follow that. So it's a perfect setup here. It's a little background. It may give you a little scare tactic on why the hell your diet is not good and what continuous heartburn is going to lead to. Moves into the principles that you need to be following, and then gives you an exact blueprint. If you read this book, if you seriously read this book, take notes, highlights, you will have the perfect plan to change your diet for the better. When I read this book, I did my Kindle, I took some highlights, and it gave me what I needed to go to the grocery store, come back and cook. It even gives you like cooking prep and cooking instructions. So it gives you everything that you would need to change your diet. So there's no excuses. If you listen to this podcast and you have extreme heartburn, this is the book that will change your life. Stop popping those Tums, because those are Band-Aids. Cut out those Band-Aids and look at the underlying cause. Read this book. It will give you all the information that you need. So, let's go through some of these quickly, each section. So we got 3 sections. First section, general info. Let's talk some highlights here. Some things that I took away from this was in section 1. There's a thing called pepsin. This pepsin it's in your stomach, and it helps to, it's meant to digest food. It's an enzyme meant to digest food, and it's in your stomach. So when you eat food, it goes down your esophagus, and now it's in your stomach, and it helps digest food. The issue is when you have a lot of acid reflux, especially the one that comes up in your throat sometimes. That's very painful. When you have a lot of acid reflux, acid from your stomach is coming up into your esophagus, and it could even, who knows, when it gets to your throat, when you'll have things getting into your lungs. So when pepsin is in that acid, when you have pepsin in that acid, you get pepsin all in your esophagus and your throat, and some traces of it have been found in your lungs. So the reason this is very bad is pepsin it breaks down food. So when pepsin is found in your esophagus or in your lungs or in your throat, and you eat some kind of food that is acidic, it activates the pepsin. And when you have activated pepsin on your esophagus, all that's really doing is eating your esophagus. You're literally allowing it to eat yourself, and that's a weird way to look at it, but that's what's happening. And so this plan that Jonathan has is designed to eliminate this. You'll see in the phases later in section 3, but it's designed to eliminate this. So if you have bad heartburn and it's constant, you probably have a lot of pepsin in your esophagus. And when you have some kind of acidic food, let's say like an orange can be acidic. With some kind of acidic food, it activates it, and then it causes more inflammation, more irritation. It's eating your esophagus, more pain, and that will not lead to good outcomes. So pepsin it's designed to keep pepsin out of your esophagus and in your stomach. 2 is, I talked about this, but when I experienced heartburn for over 10 years, for me, it was all about the pain. I was like, this is painful. And I take Pepsin, Prilosec, Tums. I tried to invent my own remedy. I'd put like lemon and ginger, and I'd boil it and make like lemon and ginger tea. And it actually temporarily worked for like the day, and then but didn't work. Long-term solution. I tried all the remedies, and um, and so what if you have chronic heartburn for so long? You could have it lead to Barrett's esophagus, and Barrett's esophagus, I don't exactly know what it is, but what I understand is like your stomach, or like you're digesting food, starts like creeping into your lower esophagus. So if you were to like look at your esophagus and it's like a tube, you look at the bottom of the esophagus, the bottom of the tube, it looks like something is like growing at the bottom of it, like trying to grow, almost like roots, almost like vines. So like your stomach are like vines trying to grow into your esophagus, is what I understand it. And that is called Barrett's esophagus. Once you have Barrett's esophagus, and that comes from constant heartburn, which is why I think that if I didn't read this book at the time I did, or if I just kept continuing with my chronic heartburn for another 10 years, I can't imagine that would have been good for me. I could have easily had Barrett's esophagus, and it comes from just constant heartburn. So constant acid reflux. I'm surprised I didn't have it after 10 years of it. So I'm very lucky. And so once you have Barrett's esophagus, you have a 30 to 125 times more likelihood to develop esophagus cancer. And that is very high. Imagine 125 times higher likelihood to develop a cancer. And so for me, I'm lucky that I just came across this book. I was fed up with having chronic heartburn. I'm a big fan of educating myself on things. So it was only a matter of time until I came across this book. I am just lucky. I'm lucky that Jonathan exists as a person, that he was willing to take his experience and write a book about this stuff, because if it wasn't for him and I didn't read this book, I would have had no real long-term solution. So I'm glad that I like to read, and I'm glad there are people out there that like to write books about their expertise. Because without that, a good chance could have slipped into the Barrett's esophagus. Other thing is, carbonated drinks is an absolute disaster. Soda, carbonated drinks, we were not meant to be drinking liquids that were bubbling. The liquid carbonated drinks, they're literally bubbling in front of you, and you're drinking that type of shit. We're meant to drink water. So keep drinking water. Don't drink this carbonated bullshit. Soda is it's one of the most common causes for nighttime heartburn. A cause of disruptive nighttime heartburn. And high fructose corn syrup is an absolute thing that you need to stay away from. High fructose corn syrup. So it's a sulfuric acid, and it's extremely acidic, and it also loosens your LES. Okay, so a couple things here. High fructose corn syrup is in a lot of food that you eat. And you need to start being more consciously aware of the food that you're eating. If you're eating anything that's packaged, you need to be looking in the back of that package and seeing if there's anything suspicious. High fructose corn syrup is very suspicious. Don't put it in your diet. You should be eating whole foods anyway. You should be fruits, vegetables, things that really aren't in packages. But the stuff that you have to buy in packages, maybe it's like a cereal, a Raisin Bran. Then look at the back, because if there's some suspicious ingredients in the back, you don't want to eat it. And a lot of the times in like a supermarket like Stop and Shop, high fructose corn syrup is pervasive, and it's extremely acidic, so it's not going to be good for your heartburn. And then I said it lowers your LES. So your LES is your lower esophagus sphincter. It's a little thing at the bottom of your esophagus. I'm trying to get the camera here. Little at the bottom of your esophagus, and it allows food to come down, so it It's a little thing that expands when food comes down. So if food comes down, whoop. Once the food is down, it's supposed to tighten back up. This way, not to allow food to go back up. Because once you have food go back up, it's very painful in your esophagus. So it's a sphincter that allows food to go down but not come up. And there are foods out there that loosen it. So high fructose corn syrup is one of them. There's also others like chocolate and coffee, which you'll see, and when you read this book, is one of the prescriptions for the healing phase. And avoiding a healing phase is one of the things that we'll talk about in section 3. But it's high fructose corn syrup is something to avoid. It's not just for heartburn. It's for everything. It's not healthy for you. And so that's section 1. Just some highlights. Just to basically some good scare tactics to say, this is something you need to start thinking about immediately if you have chronic heartburn. And then section 2 are all the principles now. So I'm not going to go through every single principle. I'll go through some highlights to get you thinking here. But no red meat. So steaks and all that stuff, very limited when it comes to the principles in this book. The meat, the proteins that Jonathan wants you to have are plant-based and animal-based. And then within them, it's like the animal-based are your chicken and turkey. Those are good, that don't cause heartburn. The plant-based, some vegetables and almonds that give some protein, but basically no red meat. Second is what I have here is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are extremely necessary to give energy. It's a good energy source for the brain, for the heart. We need energy, but we don't need bad energy. So there's simple carbs and complex carbs. Avoid the simple carbs and eat complex carbs. So donuts, cookies, potato chips are simple carbs. They are crap. They're going to give you energy for 15 minutes, and then you're going to crash, and then your insulin is going to spike, and then that's going to cause you to want to eat more and more and more and more and more. It's going to lead down to a path of constant eating like crap. And not only is that bad for diabetes, but it's just bad in general, because the more crap you eat, the more it's probably going to cause you more acid reflux. But complex carbs don't have that. They give you stable energy. It's a stable energy source. Those are things like vegetables, whole grains, legumes. Those are the things that you need to be focusing on. So you definitely need energy, but just focus on the right energy. Fats. Fats is another thing that's good and essential, but there are bad fats. So non-saturated fats and trans fats are things to avoid. Saturated fats are good, and they're good for heartburn. So cashews, almonds, peanuts, cold pressed virgin olive oil are examples of saturated fats. And there are many more examples in this book, so I'm not going to go through every detail of all of the things to avoid and eat when it comes to fats and, again, the carbohydrates and stuff. This book talks a lot about a high fiber diet. So a lot of vegetables. And there are many, many reasons why a high fiber diet is essential. Let's see, I'm opening up my Kindle book. Jonathan gives 10 reasons why you should be using a high fiber diet. Let's see if I even have this up. I don't. Oh, wait. I do. Huh. So, there are 10 reasons why you need to be sticking with a high fiber diet based on the book. This is taking it straight from the book. It lowers cholesterol levels, lowers heart disease risk, controlled blood sugar, relief for issues related to IBS, constipation, and other digestion woes, reduced pressure on the lower esophageal sphincter, improved gut health, assistance in weight loss and maintenance, reduced inflammation, staving off the sparks of cancer, And the number one benefit of increased fiber consumption for acid watchers is reduced risk of Barrett's esophagus and esophageal cancer. And since it's the number one, I'll read the whole thing. A meta-study published in the Journal of Food, Science, and Nutrition in October 2015 suggested that the dietary fiber intake is significantly associated with reduced risk of Barrett's esophagus and esophageal cancer. As an ENT who's seen many lives disrupted by precancerous and frankly malignant tissue in the esophagus, I find this benefit of fiber exceptional and exciting. It's proof that how you eat each day can be health and life altering. The study went on to identify inositol hexaphosphate, a component found in high fiber foods, as a factor in the cancer fighting ring, at least within the esophagus. That word again, inositol hexaphosphate has been shown to inhibit the growth rate of cancer cells in the esophagus by limiting their ability to multiply and simulating cell death. Okay. Reading right from the book. So, high fiber diet is a principle that Jonathan talks about that involves eating a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruit. And something that I now do, for example, for breakfast, I have celery, high in fiber. My wife hates it, but I love it. So, and then next principle I'll touch on is a low pH count. So, this diet will give you a plan because who the hell knows what food is in what pH level unless you Google it. And all of the foods we eat, I'm sure you're not going to Google every single one, but the book breaks it down simply for you on which foods to avoid. But you want to eliminate high acidic foods. And the reason I talked about is because of the pepsin. You probably have pepsin in your esophagus. And when you eat acidic foods and the pepsin goes down your esophagus, that activates the pepsin. And you don't want to activate the pepsin because then, like I said, you start eating yourself, basically. Your pepsin starts digesting, activates the digestion mode. And if it's on your esophagus, it starts digesting your esophagus. So you want a low pH count. He'll give you all of the information on what that means in this book. So those are the things. When I changed my diet, I did a lot of things. So I cut out after reading this book, and I changed my diet. I remember cutting out coffee, chocolate, alcohol, any kind of like Doritos that I would normally munch on. Coffee, chocolate, alcohol, high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is in a lot of stuff that you eat. Look at the back of your ingredients. Cut that out. High fructose corn syrup. And generally, fast food. And I was never a big fast food eater, but every once in a while I'll get some fast food. You cut out a lot of stuff, and the benefit is that all these principles mentioned, this is not just a heartburn benefit. You will not just get the benefits of no heartburn, you will be healthier as a person. So there are a lot of principles in here, and in the third section, they will be in a very specific blueprint for you to follow. But these principles will help you in all aspects of being healthy. It's not just heartburn. And so at first, if you're used to a very standard Western diet where you have a lot of salt, sugar, and fat, and fast food, and cookies and donuts, then it might be a little bit of a shock to you. But you have to weigh what's better, potentially getting things that might lead to esophagus cancer, or changing your diet and eating more healthy. And carrots and broccoli and almonds and water and celery, and that might not all sound appealing compared to Taco Bell. I don't know if anyone likes Taco Bell, but fast food and donuts and cookies and coffee and pumpkin bread and all that stuff. I get it. It's a different lifestyle. But if you're dealing with chronic heartburn, it is a necessary lifestyle change. If you're not dealing with it, I still think it's a necessary lifestyle change because, like I said, I'm a big believer in your diet will affect your health in all aspects. All potential chronic illnesses that you can get, I think, can be prevented by having a healthy diet. And so it's why you don't feel the pain from someone who might have bad acid reflux like I did. It's one of those things where down the road, you may experience something that was caused by 20, 30 years of eating like complete crap. And so what human beings are bad at, which all probably animals are bad at, is cause and effect. When cause and effect are separated by many, many, many years, it's hard to see what's going on, right? If you get hit by something and you feel pain immediately, you know the cause and effect. But if you don't feel the effect until 30 years later, then it's like, oh, what the hell did I do wrong? You have type 2 diabetes. What did I do wrong? Well, for the past 30 years, what did you eat? And it's hard. You didn't feel the exact pain until you got it. And so it's a little hard to link those two. But this is why I say it's essential, completely essential. The eating like crap will lead to illnesses down the road. So follow the principles. Don't just briefly read them, and don't even just not read the book. If you watch this podcast, buy the damn book. I don't get any money from talking about it. I only do this podcast because it's changed my life and I wanted to change others. So read the book thoroughly, take notes, look at the principles, and put the plan into practice. Section 3 talks about two things. There is 2 phases. Section 3, let me back up. Section 3 is now the blueprint for putting the principles into practice. There are meal plans and they come with how to cook them as well. So it gives you the information you need to go to the grocery store and buy all of the ingredients that you would need. Most of them, almost all of them, you can find at your normal grocery store. And then it gives you how to cook them. So it gives you the blueprint to put the principles into practice. There are 2 phases that are in existence here. So there's 2 phases. One is the healing phase, and the other is the maintenance phase. The healing phase is the 28-day program that Jonathan wants you on. Very strict. Very strict. No spices. I remember I couldn't use pepper. I could only drink water. There was no alcohol at all. I changed my salt. I used a different type of salt because this other salt wasn't great based on his recommendation. And so it took a little bit getting used to. It's a little bit of a shock going from a Western diet to this diet, but you have to do it. It's for your own freaking good. You have to do it. But the healing phase is 28 days, a very strict diet. And after the 28 days, after the pepsin is no longer in your esophagus and you have no more inflammation, the whole point is to get rid of the inflammation. So once you get rid of the inflammation, no pepsin, now you can move on to the maintenance phase, which is a continuation of the healing phase, except you can introduce a couple foods that you weren't doing in the healing phase. For example, I was able to have a cup of coffee every once in a while, or have a drink of alcohol. His recommendation was potato and corn-based vodka, and straight potato and corn-based vodka on the rocks. And that was the best way to prevent heartburn, as opposed to like drinking a beer. But the point is that healing phase, very strict. Then you'll move into maintenance phase, where you can introduce very lightly every once in a while other foods that you may have been used to in the past, but had to be eliminated in order to get the inflammation and the pepsin out of your esophagus. So Those are the 2 phases. It's a blueprint. It's simple to follow. If I was able to follow it, you can follow it. And so that's the book. It's a book that will transform the way that you think about food and how it impacts you. If you have chronic heartburn, I promise you that if you follow everything in the book, in 28 days, you'll have no heartburn. And if you follow the maintenance phase, you'll have very limited, average, normal heartburn, like a normal person. It won't be chronic. And it'll give you all of the information that you need to understand and say, wow, this shit is serious. This is no joke. This is not just pain. This is illnesses. This is chronic illnesses this will lead to chronic illnesses if I keep my act up. So read the book. I highly recommend it. One of my favorites. Jonathan, Aviv, thank you a ton. If you are ever listening to this podcast, thank you, sir. You are the man, and appreciate the fact that you took your expertise and wrote a book for people like me who love to read, but too like also to get information, and so I can get information so I can make my life better. I hope you all get a copy of the book. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. This podcast was supposed to be a preamble for you to read the book, though. I want you to understand that this has serious benefits to reading, and so I want this to be a quick little preamble, and then you go buy the copy of the book. And then if you have any comments based on your experience dealing with heartburn, add that to the comment section. I love to hear it. I love to see what other people are doing. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I cover videos not just on eating healthy. I cover it on all aspects of self-development, goal setting, communicating effectively, any kind of book review. I talk to interesting people. So more videos are coming out like this. It's designed to make us all be better as people. So subscribe to my channel. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.